Sorry, Rob, could we start bringing the house lights up a little bit? And Marie, if you want to start with what we'll do is I've got one final question for Ken, and then we'll try to take a few from the audience. We'll probably do them in bunches of 3 or something like that, just to give the audience a chance to question Sir Ken. So you've had a couple books. You've had The Element and now Finding Your Element. But I understand that you are researching a third one. Is that
Yes.
something we can talk about?
No.
Oh, right.
Yes, we can. The Element, which is a remarkable work, incidentally, which would be foolish not to buy, exactly describes, or tries to describe what we've been hearing about this afternoon when Hayley talked about feeling at her most authentic, of being most alive and most herself when she's playing. People have that experience in all sorts of different activities, occupations, but too few people find it. So the book is about that. And then when it came out, people kept saying to me, well, this is great, but how do I find my element? I said, I've absolutely no idea. I don't know. I mean, read the book again, or ideally buy more copies and give them to all your friends. You know, that'll certainly help me be in my element, even if you don't. But I knew, the writer was on the wall, so to speak. So the follow-up book is called Finding Your Element because that's exactly what it is about. But the new book, equally, sometimes I've done, I think, 3 or 4 TED Talks now. And so people say to me, well, okay, we get what the problem is, but how do we fix education? You don't talk about that in your TED Talk. And I said, well, give me a break. I mean, it's 18 minutes, But I do have very, very clear or strong ideas about it. And I've worked in education most of my life with brilliant people who are doing wonderful work. And there are some things we know about education that just work. People often say to me, talk about my theories, and I said, it's not a theory. It's not a theory, it's just what works. If you see schools which celebrate the creativity and individuality and diversity of the kids, they work. And if you treat them like battery hens, they don't. It's, I often say to politicians, if you want to stop the problems in education that you keep trying to solve, stop causing them. So the new book is about what to do about education, but I don't want to tell you the title. And the reason is that in my first TED Talk, I said I'm working on a book called Epiphany, and we subsequently changed the title to The Element. So this talk went viral and has done wonders for other books called Epiphany. But no good at all for my book, which is called The Element. So I may change the title, so I'm not going to tell you what it is.
Okay, that's fair enough. Yeah. Right. Have we got any questions here? We've got one here in the front here. Oh, one back there. If you could just say your name, and obviously please make it quite a concise question. We'll take a few at once, and then we'll have Sir Ken reply.
Good afternoon. My name's Ursula Cohen. I teach at Edge Hill University. So many of my students come in with this battery hen idea that they've got to get a degree to get on in the world. How do I convince them that they should leave?
How do you convince them what?
They should leave university if that's not where they need to be.
Okay. Did you have another? We're going to take 3. We're going to take 3 at once, yeah. Oh, here we go. Sorry. Hold on, Marie.
Good afternoon, Sir Ken. My name's Richard Dickinson. As a grandfather of 6 girls under 9, what would you advise to help them move forward in their education?
Hi, I'm Katie Moffat, and my question's quite a short one, which is a lot of what you talk about is to do with politicians and kind of convincing politicians, because they're the ones that ultimately impact all of this. And it's clear from every time you talk how many people agree with you. And I just wondered if it's ever occurred to you, or if you would ever consider kind of going into politics yourself.
Ooh. All right.
Well, I have an equally short answer to that. No. I'm much better being a nuisance. No, seriously, I think that there are too many. For me, it's about your own appetite, isn't it? About how you want to spend your time. And there's just too much nonsense attached, I think, to some aspects of that, of being associated with political parties. That it just doesn't appeal to me. And I think I can have more value doing what I do, which is working. I work all ends of the street. Now, I work a lot with politicians. I say I'm not critical of them all. By any means, it would be ridiculous to do that. But there are some problems inherent in the system that need to be pointed out. And well, that's partly what I try to do. I'm trying to argue that we need a complete paradigm shift in how we think about education, how we do it. So no, I've no real plans, and now that Michael Gove's gone, it's not so urgent. On universities, I used to, I was a professor for 12 years at Warwick, and I used to have people coming to me wanting to register for PhDs, and I spent the first day trying to talk them out of it. Not because it's a bad thing to do, but because it takes a lot of time and effort. I'm sure Hayley would agree. There's no point trying to persuade somebody to follow her path if they don't have the appetite for it. It's just too hard to do that type of thing. But also, part of my argument is that our education system has become dominated by, let's say, this idea of academic ability, and the idea that if you don't go to university and get a degree, your life is over. When I was at Margaret Bevan, I took the 11 plus, and I passed it. I was the first person, I think, in the school's history to pass it. And it wasn't because I had some inherent brilliance, particularly. I mean, obviously, but, I've seen that talk as well, you know what I mean? It is good. It is very good, I have to say. But no, I had some teachers there who took an interest in me and really helped me and coached me. And I did all the past papers, and I was given a boost to do it. But lots of people could who didn't. The reason a lot of people didn't pass the 11 plus is because it was rigged. And there was no mystery about it. It was a gateway to grammar schools, and the space at grammar schools were limited, and the vast majority of people were needed to go to secondary modern schools to do blue-collar work. That was the economic model underpinning it. That's just a matter of historical record. But we still live in this regime that the ultimate quest of all forms of education is to get a university degree, possibly a PhD, and the idea then is the world will get back on its feet. Well, it just won't. And one of the reasons is that talent is so multifarious, and people have all kinds of interests and abilities, and they should pursue what they are. I can see why people hesitate, because there's an inherent stigma in education that if you go on a vocational program, it's somehow second rate. And that's something we have to get rid of in education. This divide between so-called vocational and academic programs is a catastrophe. The world depends upon people doing all kinds of things which are informed by theories and ideas, but which are also highly practical in their execution. And part of if students say to you, should I stay at university, I wouldn't talk them out of it, because they may really benefit from that. But I would certainly start directing them towards things that they would like to do that should have equal status in their own lives and everybody else's lives. It's why I've spent a lot of time in the arts. If you look at the work that goes in, I've been involved with LIPA for quite a long time, since it began with Mark Featherstone Whitty. You look at what those students do to become real dancers, musicians, writers, actors. It's every bit as demanding, taxing, intellectually rigorous as doing any sort of degree in art history or physics or French. But we have this caste system in education. So my approach would not be to talk them out of going to college, but to talk them into what they should be doing and help them find that. And one of the best ways of doing that would be to recommend my book, The Element, How Finding Your Passion Changes Everything. If you've got did you say you've got 6 grandchildren? Yeah. It's over there, yeah. It's always hard to see. So sometimes in dark audiences like that, the sound's coming over here, and people say, I'm over here. What? Where are you? You're over there. You've got 6 grandchildren. Oh, they're all girls, yes? How old are they, can I ask you?
9 down to 4 months ago.
And what's the challenge that you face as you see it?
Well, the challenge that I see is that the eldest is extremely clever and seems to be a year ahead of her time, but the school don't seem to want to develop her. Whereas the middle two, for instance, they're not, I would say, academic. So it's like what you're saying. People feel that university is the way that it's got to go. But I don't. I certainly didn't go to university. It hasn't harmed me. I could have done better, but it hasn't harmed me. But it's a case of how can I help them to come to the decisions that you, for instance, say, you know, what is good for them.
Well, if I can say so, I think one of the ways is we have to shift our language here. You know, if we start describing kids who are academically able as the clever ones, we're already given into the trap. Because you can be clever in a multitude of different ways. That's my point. Intelligence is highly diverse. It takes every bit as much intelligence to run a restaurant, to do the brilliant things that Peter and his wife are doing, or to do what Haley's doing, or to regenerate this area of Anfield. I mean, it's partly that we've stereotyped intelligence that we end up with kids thinking they're not very smart when they clearly are. So it is, I think, that the job of parents and grandparents is to recognize the inherent diversity of your kids. I mean, I'm one of 7 children. We've got 2 of our own, my wife and I. And I'm always happy to make people a bet. I'll make it 2 here now, actually. I mean, if you've got 2 kids, how many of you have got 2 kids or more? All right, well, look, I'll make you a bet, and I'm confident I will win the bet. I always do. No, if you've got 2 kids or more, I bet you they are completely different from each other, aren't they? You would never confuse them, would you? Like, which one of you, remind me? You know, even identical twins are different. They can, people who know them well will easily tell them apart. Maybe not physically, but they can tell them apart in every other way, dispositions and talents and interests and so on. You know, I've got to tell you, years ago, when I was, before I left Liverpool, I went round the Stanley Abattoir. You ever been round that? It's I don't know why now. I think I was taking a girl out. You know, I don't know. You know, I know how to treat a woman. You know, come in. Before we have dinner, let's see where it came from. I think. And but I went all round the abattoir, and at the end of it, there was a door that said veterinarian. And I thought, well, it's a bit late, isn't it? You know. I thought, well, he must be depressed at the end of the average day. Yeah. Another 2,000 dead animals. Honestly, despite all my best efforts. So I said to the guy showing me around, I said, why do you have a veterinarian here? And he said, well, the vet comes in periodically to conduct random autopsies. Well, I thought, well, he must have seen a pattern by now, surely. I mean, 300 more cows with bolts in their head. There's something happening in there. I'm going to get to the bottom of it. It's not exactly Holmes, is it? You know, Foyle's War. There's something happening in here. I'm going to find out. No, my point is, if you design a system to do certain things, don't be surprised if it does it. You know, I mean, very few animals escape from these places and form survivors committees and have annual reunions and sing folk songs about the old days. I mean, you know, we shouldn't be doing it anyway, in my view. I mean, John, my brother's here, and my brother Neil used to play for Everton. They have a fantastic website called Peaceful Planet, which is about living without meat, and I think it's a very, very powerful and persuasive argument. But the point is, you design a system to do certain things, so it does it. And you design a system which is inherently selective, which is inherently prejudicial against certain sorts of talent, then don't be surprised if some people get disengaged from it. There are winners, but there are lots and lots of losers. And it's the case, and it's why the free school is so important in places like it, because you find these kids who previously people had given up on, or who are told they have failed this system, when actually, if you discover their real talents, if you treat them as human beings, they come back to life and do things that will astonish you. And truthfully, in most cases, despite the best efforts of all the people who work in it, the great people, I think it's always wrong to say that kids have failed school. The more honest truth in most cases is that school failed them. And if we reconfigure the system, we'll see a different type of success. And so my advice to you with your grandchildren, for you and their parents, is keep looking at them. You know, keep talking to them and try and see them for who they are. And try and, recognize they'll all take different paths through life. And your job is not to live their life for them, but at least to give them confidence and some sense of esteem in the talents they do have, rather than have them measured against talents that they're not interested in or don't particularly demonstrate.
Very sadly, we've gone a little over the 18-minute TED mark, I think. But can I offer my deep thanks for coming and spending time with us today? That was really fantastic. Can we have a round of applause?
My pleasure. Thank you.